Back on. Whoa, my name is Joe Jones. You are watching the Cup of Joe show live. Still trying to get set up here. And we are going to be picking up the Halloween story that I've been writing for many, many years. This is the book I am working on called Widicker Woods. So last time we were doing this live, it got interrupted, so we're just going to be starting over again right from where we picked up. So here we go. These are just reading glasses, so I still got a boa tarde. Hey, how's it going? Here we go. As soon as he began to scream, the door to his room suddenly swung open. It was the others Joe had told to stay in the room. Two of the men pulled out guns and shot Adiela and her sisters. Joe thought it killed them, but the men explained they were only unconscious and would soon wake up. Hey, those are my guns, Joe exclaimed. How did you get them? You left them by the front door, so me and Jake grabbed them and came looking for you when you didn't return, explained Thomas. Nick and Benjamin are coming with the girls. So Joe took one of the guns and they started down the hall, whispering the girls' names. As they began to turn the corner down the long hallway, they saw a man from behind standing still at the end of the hall. As they got closer, they realized it was Benjamin. Oh, good, Thomas exclaimed in relief. Benjamin, where's the girls? And Nick? Asked Jake. Benjamin did not turn around, nor answer him. Benjamin, where's Tabitha? Joe demanded in a stern voice. Benjamin's body began to tremble, and he began to whisper something, as if he was chanting some rehearsed speech. Joe pulled out his revolver and put it against the back of his head. Turn, slowly, Joe commanded. Benjamin got silent. Then suddenly Benjamin turned around and grabbed Joe, knocking him to the ground, knocking the gun out of his hand. Benjamin jumped on top of Joe on the ground and started trying to bite his neck. Benjamin had been attacked himself and become a vampire. Joe struggled to get Benjamin off of him as he hissed in his face. Shoot him, Joe screamed. Shoot him! Boom! Jake picked up the pistol and shot Benjamin in the head, blowing half of his head off. Joe pushed him off of him and got up. If that don't kill him, I don't know what will, said Joe. No, he'll come again after us, again when he wakes up. We've got to find the girls and get the hell out of here, Thomas exclaimed. Yeah, and get the hell out of Widicker Woods, Joe added. Then they heard someone talking nearby. They looked and saw a faint candlelight glow coming from down the hall and around the corner. They turned the corner and saw it was Nick and the girls. Nick explained that Benjamin was attacked by Dracula. We know, Joe replied. We had a close talk with him already. Well, we got to get out of here, Felicia screamed. Thankful she was okay, Joe walked up and kissed Tabitha and hugged her. He looked at everyone else and told Jake to walk into the front with him, and he instructed Nick and Thomas to be in the back of the line and the girls be in the middle so that they could be protected. Sorry guys, this writing is it's really, really sloppy, so it's like hard to read. I wrote this like 7 years ago, like I said. My handwriting's still no better to this day. He gave Nick a gun, and they began to walk. Okay, we're going to go downstairs and try to sneak out of the back quietly, Joe ensured everything. Joe ensured them everything would be okay as long as everyone stuck together and was quiet. They began to walk down the squeaky stairs. I'm scared. What if Dracula comes back for one of us? He'll take the youngest one first, which is me. I just know he will, Vanessa cries out. We'll protect you, Nick replied to her. They were almost down the staircase when they heard bats flying down the hall and screaming, flying down the hall and screeching upstairs. God, I'm really messing this up. Sorry, guys. It's them, Tabitha screamed. They turned back into bats. Run as fast as you can to the back doors, Joe commanded. So they began to sprint through the house looking for the back doors. They finally seen them with the moonlight glowing through them. Just as they got up to the glass French doors, Vanessa tried to open them, but they were locked. Her and Felicia tugged on the doors, but they would not budge. Joe told them to step back so he could shoot the glass, shattering the door, so that they could step through and escape. But just as he aimed his pistol at the door, Dracula appeared in front of him. Everyone screamed and jumped back. "Leaving so soon?" "I don't think so," screamed Dracula. With that, Joe pointed his gun at the glass door behind Dracula and shot the glass, causing big pieces to shatter to the ground. Dracula hissed with his big fangs, so Joe quickly picked up a big shard of glass about 8 inches long. Dracula came at Joe to attack him, but Joe shoved the shard of glass as deep as he could into Dracula's chest, penetrating his heart. "Ah!" Dracula screamed in pain. Because he knew that he had been mortally wounded, Adiella and her sisters appeared back in human form and kneeled down beside Dracula. They began to weep, saying, "Master!" Then Dracula's body dehydrated, and his skin sucked against his bones as he died. Joe rushed everyone through the broken door. He looked down at Adiella and her sisters as they cried over their master's body. Adiella looked up with tears and revenge in her eyes, and said, "I'm going to kill you. You may have gotten out of this house, but I'll see to it that you never get out of Widicker Woods. Or the town of Widicker." Joe pulled out his rifle and hit her in the face with the butt of his gun. "That's for threatening me," he said. He then took one last look at them and turned around and walked out the door himself. They began to walk through the dark, foggy pasture. The rain had momentarily stopped, but it was still lightning. They walked through the mud and water puddles for about a mile when suddenly Joe ran into something hard, like a giant rock. He felt on the object and identified it as a tombstone. They lit it up with a lamp to see it better through the fog. "It's a graveyard," said Tabitha. "And a really big one, too," Felicia added. It looked as if the graveyard was about as long as a football field. "Stay close, everyone," Joe told them as he began to walk slowly through the creepy cemetery. Then they began to hear the rumble of thunder again. "Oh, great. It's going to start raining again," Vanessa said. "I think that's the last of our worries," Joe told her. "Why?" "Look around," Joe replied. Everyone stopped and saw through the foggy boneyard what appeared to be Yankee and rebel soldiers slowly walking towards them. "Oh, good," Felicia said. "Soldiers. They can help us." "No, these soldiers won't be helping us because they're already dead." They began to hear the tombstones breaking and the ground began to shake. They heard thunder rumbling furiously. They began to see the graves of the fallen soldiers as the fog cleared, and the tombstones began to fall over. And the soil on their graves began to pulse up and down, as if they had a heartbeat of their own. It began to rain again, harder than before. Then a hand popped up out of a grave by Nick and grabbed him by the ankle. He had a gun and tried shooting into the grave, but the hand began to pull him down into the grave. The dirt on the grave had become like quicksand. As Nick screamed, Joe and Thomas grabbed his arms and tried to keep him from going under the ground. While they were doing this, Tabitha screamed, "Hurry!" Other people are coming out of their graves. They're zombies, screamed Samantha. Joe threw them his gun. Here, shoot them! Joe and Thomas were pulling Nick with all of their force, but the zombie in the grave pulled even harder. Nick began to scream in pain as if something were attacking him. They're eating my legs, he screamed. Nick screamed in terror as he began to sink down lower. Joe struggled to hold onto Nick's arm. With all the rain and mud, his hands kept slipping, losing his grip. Then Nick began to come up as Joe and Thomas pulled with all of their might. But then suddenly Nick's arms ripped off as they were pulling him up. Nick screamed as loud as he could and was sucked underneath the ground with the zombies. Joe then stood back up and took his gun from Tabitha. He began to shoot at them. Bullets that hit their torso seemed to do nothing. Why won't they die? He screamed in desperation. Nothing dies in Widicker Woods, screamed Samantha. Bullshit, Joe yelled as he snatched a sword from a zombie colonel's side. He raised the sword and began to swing it, chopping off the zombies' heads and their arms. It may not kill them, but at least they're harmless without those things connected, so they can't bite or scratch us. Jake grabbed a sword from another soldier and began to do the same thing. Run, he told the girls. As they ran, a hand popped out of the grave and grabbed Tabitha by the ankle. Joe, she screamed. It began to pull her under, but Joe was surrounded by zombies. He was trying to cut them and keep them off of himself. Help, she screamed. Joe fought furiously to get to her. Felicia and Vanessa grabbed her arms as it pulled her. She was down in the dirt to her knees when suddenly two men appeared. Couldn't figure out that word. Damn. One had a sword and cut the zombie's arm off of Tabitha's leg. And the men pulled her from the grave, saving her life. When Joe got to her, she was crying. Joe looked at the two men. They were both wearing cowboy hats, and one had a big mustache. The other had longer hair and a mustache. Could one be Johnny? I don't know. Who are y'all? Yankees or rebels? Neither, the woman with the big mustache said. My name is Pastor Toby, and this here is Tracy. He's a singer and I'm a cowboy preacher. Okay, and how did y'all end up in Widicker Woods? Asked Joe. Well, you see, me and Tracy were at the church rehearsing for some worship songs when some soldiers came in and tied us up and threw us in their wagon, said Pastor Toby. Yeah, and they set the church on fire, shot our horses, threw a bag over our faces. We rode into their wagon about an hour, and I asked, are y'all going to kill us? And they told us, no, we're going to take you to a place that'll make you wish we had killed you, said Tracy. Yeah, and that's when we ended up here in these woods. They threw us out of their wagon, and all kind of stuff has happened to us, Pastor Toby added. Whatever you do, don't go walking through the cornfield. There's a scarecrow man who will try to kill you. He's made of hay, and we even set him on fire, but he still came after us. Okay, well, you guys look like you can be trusted, so come with us, Joe told them. When they walked out of the haunted cemetery, they were back into the heavily wooded area. It wasn't raining on them as bad. As they walked under all the trees, and once again the temperatures had seemed to drop with all the rain. They had become extremely cold. Every man grabbed a woman and held her close to. Every man grab a woman and hold her close to you. If you have a cloak, give it to her and wrap it around both of you to stay warm, Joe told them. Then he himself grabbed Tabitha and grabbed his coat so she could stay warm. They began to hear wolves howling again. Great, the wolves are back, Joe thought to himself. All right, man, be prepared to shoot if you see a wolf, Joe told them. And it's a full moon, Felicia said. The howls got closer. Joe told everyone to stop and brace themselves. They stopped and stared off into the darkness. They heard something moving through the trees, getting closer and closer, but they couldn't see anything. Then all the noise stopped. As they stood there surrounded by darkness and drizzling rain, suddenly a giant beast jumped out from the woods. The men began to shoot at it, and everyone took off running. Excuse me, guys. As the beast followed, "It's a werewolf," Tracy screamed as he ran, looking back, shooting at it. Everyone began to split, leaving the girls vulnerable. "Stay together," Joe screamed. "Protect the girls." Tracy, Jake, and Thomas ran ahead of everyone like scared cowards. Joe and Toby stayed with the girls, still looking back, shooting at the werewolf, nipping at their heels. Suddenly, Jake fell after tripping over a tree root that was sticking up out of the ground. "Get up!" Joe yelled as they approached him. Jake got to his feet and tried to run, but he fell again because his ankle was broken. He turned around and laid on the ground and began to shoot the werewolf as it raced behind the others, drooling for blood. He fired 4 shots as Joe and the others passed him. The werewolf spotted him on the ground and stopped chasing the others. They heard Jake scream. As they looked back, they saw the werewolf raise his sharp claws and slash across Jake's face. Blood began to spray out of Jake's face all over the werewolf. The werewolf then clawed Jake's stomach, ripping it open, spilling his intestines. That's pretty sick. Jake tried to scream but gargled in his own blood as he died. The werewolf looked up at the full moon and howled. And then it buried its face in Jake's stomach and began to eat him while he was still alive. What do you guys think about this so far? It is pretty graphic here. Hey everybody. Let's go back up. Hey King Kiski, how you doing? Something better? Hello? Maria? Hey everybody. Something better? I'm working today. Hey everybody. I'm confused, so I'll just sit here quietly. So this is the other book that I am working on at the moment. This is a Halloween story that I started 7 years ago. This one's probably not going to be published. It's just kind of a fun story that I was working on, a really long time ago. So that's just what this is. It's just because Halloween's coming up, so just gonna, reading some scary story stuff to you guys. Let's see what else here. Annette Dennis, hi Joe, enjoyed your live chat the other day. I'm laughing at you, Joe, because it's funny how it is reading your story that you wrote some time ago. Keep at it. What's up, Tony? What's up, Brittany? Read it at night so it can be even scarier. That is a good idea. It is very scary. Maybe I will do another part of it tonight. Let's see here. Where are we? I lost my place. Okay, I guess we're starting from the top. Meanwhile, Joe and the others had gotten far away from the gruesome scene. They had found a wide opening in the woods, and they were near a pond. They stopped running and tried to catch their breath as it rained on them. The girls began to cry because of what they had just seen happen. "I really like Jake. I've known him for a long time," Vanessa said as she cried. Joe looked at her and said, "Jake was a coward. He left us. He'd have let you have the same fate. He got what he deserved." Joe looked at Tracy and Thomas and said, "And y'all ought to be ashamed of yourselves. This never would have happened if y'all would have stayed together. While we were in the woods, we stick together. Now, if you want to go out there and face these monsters alone, you go right ahead. But while you are with us, with this group, I'm in charge, and you will either obey my orders or I will have you shot." Tracy and Thomas stood there with their heads bowed as Joe walked past them. "Now let's get moving before that thing comes back, or I'll shoot y'all in the legs and let it eat you. To slow it down, so we can escape." "We get the point," Thomas said. So they began to swiftly walk through the woods. Then they found a familiar road. They found that familiar road again that they had first taken when they entered Widicker Woods. "Come on, this must be the way out of here," Joe told them. They walked down the long road, looking for a shelter or a way out of the town of Widicker. "There must be an abandoned house around here somewhere," Tracy stated. "Yeah, but just don't go to that plantation. It is not vacant," Joe replied. Joe began to laugh, but just as he did, they heard a stampede of horses roaring down the road coming up behind them. They looked back and saw rebel soldiers on 9 horses sprinting furiously before they had time to jump out of the way. They all fell on the ground in fear, knowing that it was too late for them to move and would soon be trampled. But as the horses were about to run over them, the horses and soldiers ran right through them, unharming Joe and the others. They turned around and looked at the horses. The horses rode on another 5 seconds and then completely disappeared. "They were ghosts," Thomas said. "Thank God they can't hurt us." Then they heard another horse coming. They turned around and saw the headless horseman coming up behind them. And guys, this is obviously not a final copy, so there's a lot of mistakes in this from 8 years ago. So I'm reading it as it's wrote, so it's like, oh, some words, I see that doesn't sound right, so I have to, go back and correct myself. "They couldn't hurt us, but he can." "Run," Joe screamed. They all began to run. This time, the headless horseman had an axe instead of a sword. Pastor Toby tried to shoot him as he ran. "Don't waste the bullets. It won't hurt him," Joe exclaimed. Joe explained as they ran for their lives. Just as the horseman rode up beside Joe and lifted his axe to swing it on him, they heard someone saying, "Over here! Come in here!" They looked to the right and saw an old 2-story wooden house with a woman who looked to be very old standing on the porch. Joe ducked down to avoid being hit with the horseman's axe. The horseman missed Joe, and the others ran to the house. The woman rushed all of them in. When they got in, they saw another woman standing in the front room. In the room, there was a fireplace lit. Everyone gathered around to get warm and dry from the rain. They heard a loud smash at the door. The woman opened the door and saw a smashed pumpkin. Then they saw the headless horseman ride off into the fog. The woman shut the door and introduced herself as Mina. And she introduced the other woman as Brandy. She told Joe that they too were slaves. They said they were brought there after being caught trying to escape from their plantation. They said They had been stuck in Widicker Woods for 13 years already, and they explained how you never age a day as long as you are in the woods, as if you will be tortured forever as long as you live by the hauntings of these woods. Who knew the fountain of youth was in the heart of hell? That's funny. She also explained that the sun never rises in Widicker Woods, that it has always been and will always be night, as long as evil still controls the woods. Joe asked if it ever stops raining. She told him the weather changes drastically. One moment it'll be raining, the next moment it'll be snowing. Sounds like Texas. Then turn into the thickest fog you've ever seen. They all sat down on the floor and began to tell Mina and Brandy about themselves. When they got to Tracy, he told them that he was a country singer for the church. We're going to skip that part. Some of the stuff I can't read on YouTube. There was no one here. Let's see. There was no one here except a bunch of giant rats and spiders. But we ran most of those out. Most of them? Asked Samantha. Mina smiled, but before she had a chance to answer, Brandy came back in the room with a guitar and handed it to Tracy. He sang a few songs and then put the guitar up. Joe and Tabitha got up and went and sat down by the fireplace. "Thank you for being so protective over me," she said to him, smiling. He looked over at her and said, "I think I'm falling in love with you." "I've already fallen in love with you." "With you," she replied. Joe smiled and they leaned into each other and kissed. "Brandy, is there a room we could sleep in? We're dreadfully tired. It's been a very long night." "We have enough rooms for all of you," said Mina. "Take them to the room with the window." Brandy led everyone upstairs. "We'd like to stay here to try to discuss a way out of Widicker Woods tomorrow," Joe told her. So Joe and Tabitha settled in their room and made love together for the first time. And then they fell off to sleep. Later that night, the wind was blowing very hard, making the shutters on the windows clack, and the tree limbs that towered over the house brushed against the wooden shingles on the roof. Lightning flashed through the windows, casting eerie shadows of the trees on the wall. The loud roar of thunder outside echoed through the giant house. While Joe and Tabitha slept, a new vampire opened their window and crawled through. He stood over Tabitha, watching her sleep, then leaned over as if to bite Tabitha. But Joe turned over in his sleep, and the vampire crawled back out of the window and flew off as a bat into the night. Hours later, Mina came in everyone's room and woke everyone up. Joe looked over at Tabitha. "Okay. Never mind, looks like I scratched a lot of that out." "Okay. Well, I scratched a lot of that out. I guess it wasn't worth saying." So it just picks up here. It says, Joe interrupted her by saying, "Dracula doesn't rule over anything. I killed him. He's dead. We all saw that. We all saw him die." Mina looked up at Joe and replied back by saying, "Joe, this was Dracula that you saw looking through your window. Dracula doesn't send his slaves out to attack. You may have seen Dracula's body indeed pass away to dust, but if Dracula had a male slave, then he could be resurrected and take the youth of his male slave, or servant. Well, he only had 3 women," Joe told her. "But Benjamin was attacked and became a servant," Felicia shouted. Mina looked over slowly at Joe. "Is that true?" she asked. "Damn. Yes, it's true. I forgot about him. He tried to attack me," Joe replied. "And yes, he was young like us, but Dracula was really old. Then that means that his slaves have taken Benjamin's blood and rubbed it into Dracula's ashes. That resurrects Dracula, and he takes Benjamin's youth. He becomes as young as Benjamin, and he'll become 3 times as strong as he was before when he was old. That must be why you were so easily to defeat him before." Okay, then I scratched out a whole bunch of other stuff. You know what? I think we're gonna end it I think we're going to end it right there, guys. I think that's good enough for part 3. We may pick up some more this evening when it gets dark. So I'm going to read some comments here. Let's see, my old man glasses. Here we go. Do-do-do-do-do. Where was I at last? Okay, what's up, Tony? What's up, Brittany? Okay, read that. Just subscribe. What's up, Songs? Thank you for joining. I appreciate that. I'm listening just to watch Joe. Thank you, Brittany. Nathan, I am doing good. Let's see here. With your creative mind, if you're into sci-fi, would love to see what you would come up with. Could only imagine. Yeah, that would be cool. Can you read like a ASMR? Yeah, I've actually been asked to do that. You're the second person that has said that. So I may try something like that. So yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Let's see here. Basemouth, I was thinking the same exact thing. He should write a script for the Sci-Fi Channel. What do you guys and gals think about that? That would be cool. I am late, still at work. Oh, how you doing, Rissa? Basement, good minds think a lot. Sorry, Joe, my lunch is over. I must get back. It sounds like you have a New York Times bestseller on your hands. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Something better? Let's see. I was enjoying watching Joe. Well, I appreciate that. Maybe we will, let's see here. Because we're like halfway through this, you know? I could have swore there's like two spirals full of writings, and I haven't finished this particular book. I have not yet. Like I said, it's been something that's been going on for 8 years now. So never got a chance to finish. I haven't wrote in it in like 2 years though. You know. What do you guys think about me with glasses? You know, it's kind of weird. I don't really wear glasses. Only when I'm having to read stuff, like when I'm typing or narrating a different cowboy, you know, or reading, I guess, is the only time I wear glasses. Let's see here. Okay. We read that part. Maybe I'll do one more page. And even these glasses, it's still kind of hard to read because they're not prescription glasses, so you still got to be kind of close. All right, let's see here. Got some creepy music playing in the background right here. Halloween's coming up, guys. I don't know if you guys knew that, but Halloween's coming up. I like Halloween a lot. It's a fun holiday. I'm not supposed to celebrate Halloween, though. I'm a Christian. But, you know, a lot of people do. I like Halloween. I always have. You know, Halloween's always been fun for me. So, let's see. Looks good on you. Thank you. Where were we? Okay, introduce Brandy. Yep. I've already... Okay. Let's fast forward here. Let's do one more page. I don't know why I crossed a lot of this stuff out. There's a lot of this, I guess it was just inappropriate or something, you know. Okay, we read that. More stuff that's crossed out. Look at it. A lot of this stuff has lines going right through it. It's just trash. Alright, so let's pick up right here. I don't know what it's talking about now that we skipped 3 pages. Let's see. Joe and Tabitha walked back downstairs and sat next to the fire, asking Felicia and Vanessa if they were okay. Brandy walked into the room and sat down next to Joe. How do you and Mina know so much about these things, how things work here? I mean, y'all know so much about Dracula, how Dracula can spawn into someone else, and how he runs the show. How do y'all know that? How do y'all know that? Joe asked. Well, she stated, you see, Mina and I weren't the first ones to end up here. In fact, we're not the only ones who are here. There's others, hiding, waiting for some type of savior or hero to come rescue us from this sinister existence. See, when we first came here to these woods, we met some people who saved us. There were 6 of them. They taught us everything we know about this place. Mina doesn't like to talk about them because they were like family to us. And she feels as though they left us, betrayed us. What do you mean left y'all? I thought there was no way out, Joe asked. Brandy laughed silently. Huh, no, there's one way out. Suicide, she exclaimed. 3 hung themselves. There's ones who were like parents to us. Oh, the ones who were like parents to us went crazy. And they had been trapped here for over 60 years, living in fear. So one day the husband walked up behind his wife and said, I'll get us out of here. He pointed the gun at her and pulled the trigger. Then he put the revolver in his mouth and took his own life. Then the other one, who was like a brother to us, him and Mina were real close. He kept seeing things that we couldn't. He said they were unspeakable things. Things so frightening that he would not even dare tell us what he was seeing. He got to the point where he couldn't even close his eyes and dream without having nightmares about the unholy terrors of what he so unwantedly been terrorized by and seen in his day life. So what happened to him? Asked Felicia. Brandy looked at Felicia, then looked around at everyone else who was listening. He got to the point where he couldn't handle seeing the hauntings anymore. So he ripped his own eyeballs out and wandered off into the woods. We haven't seen him since. We don't know if he died and his spirit finally left this place to go to be with the Lord, or if he became one of those monsters outside those doors. For all we know, he probably didn't even believe in God anymore. He used to always be strong in his faith. He said when he was free, he came to this place. But there, towards the end, he changed. He'd say, how can a loving God exist and know that we're stuck in this place like this? That's a little weird. Let's get past that song. That's kind of creepy. Exist, Toby interrupted. He's here with us now. Even though there's much evil here, God is not going to forsake us. We have to keep our faith. We have to fight these demons. God is on our side. Brandy looked over at the fire crackling and then looked back to Toby and asked, are you some kind of preacher or something? I am, he answered, and my faith is strong in the Lord Jesus Christ, he added boldly. Brandy replied. Well, you stay here long enough and your strong faith will begin to die too. Well, we'll see who gets out of here, Pastor Toby murmured under his breath as he put his cowboy hat back on and stood up to go look out the window. He turned back around and looked at everyone and pulled out a little worn-out Bible and held it up for all to see. He said, this book is very powerful. You think you're gonna kill things with a book? Bullets can't even stop these monsters out here, Thomas interrupted. Pastor Toby looked at Thomas and said, Bullets may not be able to stop those monsters out there, but one can sure stop you if you interrupt me again. Yes, I'm a preacher, but I'm also a cowboy. Now you listen to me. As I was saying, this book is very powerful. We can defeat demons with this book. I don't understand, Samantha replied in response to Pastor's remarks. How is the book powerful? It's not the book itself that's powerful, Sam. It's what's in this book that gives us the power and the upper hand. This book is a blueprint for how to defeat and overcome any obstacle or any evil. Through the word of God and faith, we can overcome these things. We've tried praying, added Vanessa, and I've watched my friends die by the hands of vampires. True, but you and your sisters were united after all these years, Pastor Toby replied. Try to find the good out of this situation, and then you'll see that God is here. He's got a plan for all of you. Mina walked back into the room and asked what was going on. He's trying to encourage us, Joe told her. Good, we could use some encouragement around here. Yeah, well, I've had enough of this, grunted Thomas, as he stood up and walked out of the room. Peck, peck, peck. They heard something pecking on the outside of one of the windows. Joe stood up and grabbed his revolver. Be quiet, everyone, he whispered. What is that? One of the girls asked. Then the pecking turned into scratching noise on the window. The girls began to panic. Something's out there, screamed Vanessa. It's probably just a tree branch scratching up against the window. The wind is blowing pretty hard out there, Joe assured them. He slowly walked over to the window with his gun ready. He slowly began to open the curtains and look outside, only to see dense fog and drizzling rain, with the dead tree limbs swaying in the wind. Joe smiled a smile of relief and said, See, it's only the wind. Then they heard 3 loud bangs at the front door. They all looked towards the door. Bang, bang, bang! Once again, Joe closed the curtains and heard the same eerie scratching at the front door. This time, it was undeniable that it wasn't just the wind. Something was out there. Thomas, Joe yelled. Let's check the front door. Pastor, grab a rifle and stay here. Whatever happens, don't let whatever this is get past the threshold. Pastor Toby nodded. Joe threw a rifle to Thomas and motioned for him to come on. Once again, 3 loud bangs. Joe grabbed the door handle and told Thomas to hold his rifle high and keep his finger on the trigger. The 3 girls cuddled together behind Toby in fear. Thomas aimed his rifle as Joe swung the door open quietly. Quickly, you can't swing a door open quietly. Swung the door open quickly. At first they saw nothing because all of the fog. Then they heard a moan and looked at the ground. And laying face down in front of the door, they saw a figure of a man missing both legs and one arm. Thomas, you better look. Wait, no. Thomas got a better look and screamed, Nick! Thomas threw his gun down and knelt down beside Nick's body and said, It's him! He was banging on the door. It's a miracle he's alive. He must have escaped the grave with the zombies and somehow crawled to us. Help me get him inside. Now wait a minute. You be careful with that, Thomas. There's no way he's alive. Flip him over, Joe demanded. So Thomas flipped him over, and they saw that his face had mud all over it, and a bite mark on his neck exposing arteries. Thomas, get away from him, said Joe, as he began to back up. Oh no, he's dead now. We're too late. He must have been banging on the door in his last moments, cried Thomas. He must have just died. Get back in here, Thomas, now, Joe screamed. Okay, but help me get his butt. But before Thomas could finish his sentence, Nick's eyes opened, and they were glowing yellowish green. Thank God, he's alive, exclaimed Thomas, still kneeling beside him. No, Joe screamed. Thomas looked back at Nick and screamed as he saw Nick's mouth open with a bloody sharp teeth as a worm crawled out of his mouth. That's pretty sick. Thomas tried to get up and run, but Nick grabbed one of his legs and made him fall. Nick then bit Thomas's calf, ripping it open like a shark attack. Thomas screamed at the top of his lungs in pain and terror as he kicked Nick in the face as hard as he could. Finally, the zombie let go and looked up at Joe with a chunk of bloody meat hanging out of his mouth. Joe shot Nick in the forehead, blowing the back of his skull off. Joe dragged Thomas into the house and slammed and locked the door behind them. Thomas laid on the floor, shaking, bleeding profusely on the floor. Okay, we already determined that he's on the floor. I don't know why I said that twice. Brandy ran over with some cloaks and began to wrap it around his leg, nursing him. Mina stood in the corner watching and said, "He's not going to make it. He's either going to bleed to death or he's going to turn into one of those zombies first." "See, I told you to get away from him, and you left your rifle outside," Joe angrily told him. "I can't get to it. I can't get the bleeding to stop," said Brandy, panicking as she watched the blood from his leg seep through every layer of cloth she had wrapped around it. "Like I told you, he's got two options. Once you get bit by one of those things, you become one yourself, just like your friend Nick out there. So if I don't have a chance, why don't you just... So if I don't have a chance, why don't you just put me out of my misery? Y'all just gonna stand here and watch me bleed to death?" remarked Thomas. "Killing you now would be the best thing for all of us," replied Mina. "Well, any volunteers?" Joe asked. He looked over at the pastor. "I've put down horses, but never a man. Don't look at me," he stated. Thomas began to shake furiously. Looking up at Brandy, he said, "I'm cold." Joe looked over at him and said, "You're cold because all of your blood is leaving your body and you're going into shock. Or is turning into one of those things," Felicia screamed. "Give me the gun," Thomas grunted. "If all of you are too scared to shoot me, I'll do it my damn self." So Joe and Pastor Toby carried him up to the second floor and opened the window and set him up in the windowsill so that when he died, he would fall backwards out of the window. They didn't want him to die in front of the women downstairs. And they didn't want the front door to open. They didn't want to have to open the front door and carry him out of the way, because they weren't sure if Nick was really dead. And who knows what else was outside those doors. So Joe handed Thomas the revolver and loaded one bullet in it. He told Thomas he was sorry for his loss, and the pastor said a prayer over him. Thomas then asked that they leave the room immediately. He told them as soon as they walk out the door of the bedroom, he would shoot. Thomas lifted his shaking hand with the gun, and they watched as he held it under his chin. "Go! There's no cure for me," he stated. "Go! And with that, the two men bowed their heads and slowly walked across the hardwood floor of the room and walked out of the door. They stood on the other side of the door, awaiting to hear the sound of the gunshot. Seconds passed, then minutes. Joe got suspicious and cracked the door open to see what was happening. He saw Thomas slouched over in the windowsill, motionless. Alright guys, I'm going to read one more page here. We got 12 people watching right now. What do you guys think about this so far? Well, he's dead, said Pastor Toby. Didn't like the thought of that young man taking his own life anyway. Yeah, Joe replied. Well, we'll just have to push him out of the window. As they approached his lifeless body, Joe saw that his revolver was still in Thomas's hand. I'll be needing this, he said. But as he reached down to grab the gun, Thomas suddenly lunged forward into Joe and began trying to bite him. Thomas began to rip Joe's shirt, and blood and mucus oozed out of his mouth onto Joe's shirt. Joe screamed and fought to keep his jagged teeth away from puncturing his flesh. Pastor Toby couldn't get a clear shot, so he grabbed Thomas and tried pulling him off of Joe. Suddenly, Mina burst through the door. Put your head down, Joe, she screamed. Joe looked back to see Mina with a shotgun in her hands. He laid his head on the floor and pushed the zombie upward off of him. Hey! Mina screamed to the zombie. When the zombie looked up at her, she said, Not in my damn house. And with that, she pulled the trigger and blew the zombie's head completely off. And that's as far as we're going to get with that today, guys. That is my Halloween story, Whitaker Woods, chapter 3 or part 3. There's not really chapters to this. I didn't, really split it up. It's just like a big old run-on thing. So I'm going to read some of the comments here before I go. Let's see here. Thank you. You are a great writer. Thank you. Looks good on you. I appreciate that. Okay, let's see. Here, get the right prescription so that you can read and see at night while driving. Your eyesight will only get worse. That's true. Horror movies are the best. They are my favorite. I choose horror movies over comedy any day. Same here. I can only look at that in the daytime. Good night. Good night, Nathan. Are you thinking about doing a Q&A with your girlfriend? That's a good idea. Hey, what's up, AB? Wish I could stay and chat, but I have to work. All right, we'll see ya. That was really good. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, everybody. If you like that, feel free to share. Tell your friends if there's someone that's into horror or scary stories and stuff like that. And thank you so much, guys, for watching part 3 of Whitaker Woods. Until next time, I am Joe Jones. This was Whitaker Woods. It's backwards. It would have to be like, the camera would have to be turned around. How do you do that? Oh, here we go. Whoop. Whitaker Woods by Joe Jones. This is the Cup of Joe Show. And this has just been your daily dosage. Until next time, guys. See y'all next time. Until next time, see y'all next time. That doesn't make any sense. See you later.